Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the A-hole for telling my estranged sister and our parents that she and her kids are not my problem? 7 years ago, I was married and expecting a baby when things went horribly wrong. About 10 weeks into my pregnancy, I suffered a miscarriage, and then I returned home to find my husband in bed with my sister. The two of them tried to apologize and convince me that we could all get over it, but I wanted nothing to do with either of them, or even less so when I found out she had gotten pregnant. My divorce was finalized quickly because I wanted nothing from him other than the divorce, and was willing to leave the marriage with nothing but the clothes on my back. Pretty early, I realized my parents were hoping I would want to still be part of the baby's life, but I wanted nothing to do with the baby my sister conceived while sleeping with my husband, now ex, as I lay in hospital losing my own pregnancy. I refused any and all contact with my sister and ex. They married and had 2 more children after the one she conceived during my marriage to him. I met my current husband when I was distancing myself from my whole family, and he was amazing, and his family were great. We got married 2 years ago, and his family are nothing short of the best. I adore the nieces and nephews I've gained through my marriage to him, and we spend a lot of time together. Around 3 months ago, my sister called me at work using my work phone, and told me she needed me and could I please come to her. I hung up the phone and continued about my day. It was several hours later that I got a message from my parents saying I needed to be with my sister. A few days later, I got another call and was told my sister had been pregnant, the baby passed away inside of her, and she delivered a stillborn all while he was out sleeping with someone else. My parents and sister expected me to rally around her, and I didn't. Now that some time has passed and she lives with them, I've been inundated with them saying I should meet her kids, be there for them like I am my husband's nieces and nephews, and that I should reconcile with the family. My sister told me how sorry she was again and that she wanted us to make up. I told the 3 of them that she and her kids are not my problem and I still want nothing to do with them. My parents are furious, and they say I need to forgive because whatever she did, she is now suffering worse than would ever be deserved, and her kids are innocent and deserve an out. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your sister ducked around, and now she's finding out. I'm incredibly sorry that either of you had to go through any of that. Both the miscarriage, stillbirth, and the cheating. But this is karma wrapped in a big ducking bow. I am not downplaying the horror of miscarriage or stillbirth, nor would I ever wish it upon anyone. It is one of the worst things a human can go through. My comment was more aimed at the cheating aspect and the fact that the two situations are so damn similar. Although I will add that I'm wondering what the hell kind of man sees his wife in hospital losing her baby and thinks it's the perfect time for a hookup. Another comment said, worse than could ever be deserved? I happen to think she got exactly what she deserved. She got exactly what she gave to you. Literally found herself in the exact same predicament, and the fact that she thinks she deserves your sympathy is almost comical. I honestly think you should cut communication with all 3 of them. Your horrid sister and kind of even more so horrid parents. Of course, you're not the a-hole. Don't question yourself for a minute. Continue to live your best life without the unnecessary baggage some might refer to as your family. The next story is titled, Lawyer Neighbor Tries to Steal Farmer's Property and Exploit Them, Gets Destroyed in Court. I am a small business owner in a quaint little town where everyone knows each other. I had been running my business for several years now and it was going pretty well. However, my life took an unexpected turn when a city developer bought the property next to mine. At first, I was excited about the prospect of having a new neighbor, but as time went by, I started to notice that the developer had a chip on their shoulder. They looked down on us locals, thinking they could bully us around. I didn't like the way they treated people, and their attitude was not something we welcomed in our town. One day, the developer came to me with a proposal to expand my business. I was excited at first, but when I heard their terms, I was taken aback. They wanted me to sign a contract that would give them complete control over my business, including my profits. When I refused, the developer threatened to buy out my property and put me out of business. I was shocked and felt helpless. I knew I had to do something, so I decided to fight back. I started researching and gathering evidence against the developer. I found out that they had a history of bullying other local businesses and exploiting their profits for their own gain. I went to several meetings and talked to other business owners who had experienced similar situations. I even created a group to share information and support each other. It was not just me anymore, but a group of people who had been affected by the developer's actions. Together, we hired a team of lawyers who specialized in property disputes. We started gathering more evidence and building a solid case against the developer. We knew that it was not going to be easy, but we were determined to fight for what was right. When the day of the trial arrived, the developer represented themselves, just like in the original story. They tried to use complicated legal language to confuse the judge and make themselves look smarter, but our lawyers were prepared. They asked simple questions that exposed the developer's lies and manipulation tactics. The judge ruled in our favor, and the developer was ordered to pay a hefty fine for their attempts at bullying and exploiting local businesses. Word got around about the trial, and soon everyone in town knew about what the developer had tried to do. They became a laughingstock, and no one wanted to do business with them anymore. However, the story does not end there. A few weeks after the trial, we found out that the developer had not given up. They had tried to buy up more properties in our town, hoping to continue their plans for expansion. We knew that we had to act fast and stop them before they could hurt anyone else. We organized protests and demonstrations to show our unity and to put pressure on the developer. We also reached out to the media and shared our story with the world. We wanted everyone to know what was happening in our town and to stop the developer from exploiting us any further. Our efforts paid off, and the developer was forced to sell off all of their properties and move out of town. They had lost everything, including their reputation and career. It just goes to show that you can't mess with the little guy and get away with it. In the end, justice was served, and we were able to keep our businesses and our properties. We learned that it's important to stand up for ourselves and for what we believe in, even when it seems like the odds are against us. And that sometimes bullies get a taste of their own medicine. As time went on, our town slowly started to recover from the developer's actions. People were no longer afraid of being bullied and taken advantage of. Business owners were able to focus on their work and not worry about being pushed out of their own properties. It was a new beginning for all of us. However, the developer was not done yet. They had lost everything in our town, but they were determined to continue their plans for expansion in other parts of the state. They had money and connections, and they were not going to let a small town stop them. We soon found out that the developer had moved to another town and had started buying up properties there. They had found a new group of people to exploit and bully, and we knew that we had to do something to stop them. We reached out to other towns and cities and shared our story with them. We wanted them to know what the developer was capable of, and to be aware of their actions. We also started a petition to change the laws regarding property disputes and to protect small businesses from being taken advantage of. Our efforts paid off, and the petition gained traction. People from all over the state signed it, and it became a hot topic in the media. Politicians started to take notice and propose new laws that would protect small businesses and property owners from developers like the one we had faced. The developers soon realized that they were not going to get away with their actions anymore. They had become a symbol of greed and corruption, and people were starting to see them for who they really were. They had lost their reputation, their career, and now their influence. In the end, justice was served not only for our town, but for the state as a whole. We had taken a stand against a bully, and we had won. We learned that we are stronger when we come together, and that we can make a difference when we fight for what is right. The developer had lost everything, but we had gained something more valuable: our sense of community and our spirit of resilience. We knew that we could overcome anything as long as we stood together and never gave up.
The next story is titled, Am I the A-hole for spending my children's inheritance, leaving almost nothing to them and my grandchildren? I'm 63 years old. I took advantage of better times, financially speaking, and managed to get enough money to save, have a good retirement, and leave a good inheritance for my children. However, their actions in recent years have broken my heart. My oldest daughter is a lawyer married to an attorney. I have another son who is also a lawyer, a third who became an engineer, and the youngest who is a salesman. I've been a smoker for many years, and the predictable outcome has finally caught me, so I may not have many years left. After knowing this, my children began stabbing each other's backs trying to get their inheritance earlier. Initially were frequent verbal discussions that escalated to legal battles. The boiling point came when my daughter forged her brother's signature to take their part of the inheritance while I was being treated at the hospital. Now, none of the siblings can see each other in the eye and only talk through lawyers. Saddened by this situation, decided to spend the money, thinking that if all of it is gone, they would have no more reasons to fight.
I donated to charities, bought my wife beauty items, went on vacation with her, paying for the better-looking hotel rooms, no planes because of COVID travel restrictions, gave my grandkids expensive gifts, bought my dearest friends and colleagues better equipment to improve their work. We bought a huge TV, prepaid for my funeral, tasted some fine whiskey, among other things. Right now, about 65 to 70% of my savings are now gone. I plan to keep enough for the time I have left and leave my wife a good cash amount. However, my children are noticing that I'm spending a lot and started to ask questions. My daughter figured out what happened on her own. I had no rebuttals since I'm guilty of all the accusations she made, but then she mentioned that her children will suffer because of my selfish acts. Not only that, but I am cursing all of her grandchildren by doing this. That made me think that my grandchildren shouldn't be punished for their parents' sins, and maybe I was too self-absorbed to realize it sooner. That's my dilemma now. Comment said, not the a-hole. What did she accuse you of? Spending your money that you earned on a life you wanted? Inheritance is what you get when someone dies. It's not yours. You're not entitled to it. You don't get to dictate what happens until you actually inherit it. You can, until the day you die, change up who gets what. You got one kid who's not being a dick? Leave it to them. Or leave it to your grandkids in a trust their folks can't touch. You can roll it up and smoke it. It's yours. You've done nothing wrong. Hell, just leave it all to your wife. That's how it should go anyway. And I'm sorry you're at this point, man. The big C sucks. Assuming that's what you meant. Another comment said, are you saying an attorney, lawyer, engineer, and a salesman can't provide for their children and have to rely on inheritance? Tell them it's your money and ultimately you aren't responsible for their grandkids' future, and they should be saving up for them. Tell your kids to jog off and do one. Another comment said, not the a-hole. When will kids learn that they are not entitled to any inheritance? This sense that you are owed money from your parents or grandparents is obscene. If people want to leave awesome to a loved one, that's fine, but no one is entitled to it. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for putting parental controls on my TV and royally pissing off my father-in-law? I, male, 30s, live with my wife, female, 30s. We have 2 kids, male 8 and female 6. My wife's parents are staying with us temporarily as their home is having some serious repairs after a freak accident. It wasn't their fault and luckily they had insurance. The repairs should be completed in 2 months from now. I don't really get along with my in-laws, especially my father-in-law, but I agreed to let them stay because I thought the time would fly by and it wouldn't be that bad. But I'm posting here, so I guess I was wrong. My mother-in-law doesn't have a job, and my father-in-law works late shifts until around 11 p.m. When he gets home, they'll watch YouTube in the living room and play music on it at a loud volume with our speaker system. It's not college house party bass tearing apart the walls loud, but it is still loud. My kids are not light sleepers, but this wakes them up. Then they go to wake me up because they want me to make it stop. My kids need to be rested for school, and I need to get up in the morning to drop them off and go to work. My wife works overnight shifts, so she doesn't witness this. I've tried to talk to my mother-in-law and father-in-law about it and asked that they please keep the noise down after my kids' bedtime, which is 8:30 p.m. I don't expect complete silence, but I really don't think they need to have the TV on loud late at night. My father-in-law argued with me and said that he doesn't finish work till 11 p.m., so I'm basically expecting him to not do the things he enjoys after work. I told him he can do it before work or on his days off, or it's tough crap. He complained to my wife, who's now taking his side and saying that the kids need to learn how to sleep through a bit of everyday noise. I told her it's not everyday noise and that he and mother-in-law are being excessively noisy and inconsiderate. She's just not there to see it. My father-in-law has been sending me links to buy earplugs for the kids. I've gotten really fed up with this. It's not my in-laws' house, and they're staying with us as guests, and I think they're being really selfish. I decided to put parental controls on the TV so that my in-laws can't use it after 8:30 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next day. Between those times, the TV can't be used without putting in the password, and only I know it. This doesn't affect my wife, as she doesn't get off work until 6 a.m. and isn't normally home until 6:20ish. My father-in-law is now incredibly pissed off with me and said that I'm acting like a child and keeps pestering me, demanding the password. My wife is also mad at me for upsetting her dad. I'm just so annoyed at this whole situation, and I'm sick of hearing about it, so I just want to know if I'm morally in the clear. Comment said, not the a-hole. Your in-laws are rude and inconsiderate, and your wife should be managing them and backing you up in this. Had she done so, you would not need to take such drastic measures. Both you and the kids need your sleep. The in-laws are guests in your home. This is wildly inappropriate for them to act this way. If they don't like the house rules, they can go to a motel. Another comment said, not the a-hole. They may be in-laws, but they're guests within your home. You've asked them politely before and they've ignored you. Tell them to read a book to keep themselves entertained. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not spending this Christmas in the hospital with my daughter? My, 39 female, daughter, 16 female, has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid. There are certain foods that will upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify all trigger foods and cut them from her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what those foods are: soda and other carbonated drinks, chips, Cheetos, and other similar processed snacks, anything oily or fried, and most sweets. Unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff my daughter loves to eat the most. And as horrible as she feels after she has them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn led to her spending a lot of time in the hospital during the past few years. When she was little, it was easier to keep all these foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria, she trades her lunch with her classmates, she goes out with her friends and stops to eat at KFC, and so on. And it always ends with her in the ER, crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on this Christmas Eve as well, when our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table were some of her main trigger foods, like chips, soda, chocolate, and sweets. Now mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked traditional dishes on the table with ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc. All of them delicious and well-seasoned. My daughter herself says she really likes most of these dishes. Despite this, my daughter chose to eat nothing but her trigger foods. I reminded her that they'd make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. Well, this ended with her violently throwing up in the ER a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours ago. And unlike all the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts, and told her that if she needed anything I'd ask a family member to bring it to her. But I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And, well, my daughter didn't take this too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone, begged me to come over, told me how horrible I was for abandoning her there all alone, and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either, and during the past few days, I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not sure if I'm going to be in the minority here or get downvoted, oh well, but I'm going with not the a-hole. She's 16, and for sure smart enough and mature enough to know better. As cliche as the saying is, and as much as it's overused on Reddit, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This isn't a case of a 7-year-old that doesn't really know any better. This is a person that will legally be an adult in less than 2 years. She knows full well what she can and cannot eat, and she made a personal choice to eat things she shouldn't. While it may seem cruel and heartless, maybe you leaving her there by herself, obviously she's not since there were plenty of staff there with her, will be the wake-up call she needs to stop eating the crap that makes her get admitted into the hospital. Another comment said, not the a-hole because of this. She said she didn't care because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. But she eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria, she trades her lunch with her classmates, she goes out with her friends and stops to eat at KFC and so on. And it always ends with her in the ER, crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This is not a moment of poor judgment because she's a teenager and it's Christmas. She does this regularly and doesn't care how it affects her or others. Now I say not the a-hole because I understand it must be frustrating that your daughter doesn't care for her own health. But you really should talk to her and figure it out why she has no care at all for her own well-being. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.